The bus pulled into the station just as the sun was setting over the city skyline. Alina pressed her face against the window, watching the tall buildings light up one by one. This was it. Her new life was about to begin. She grabbed her 2 suitcases from the luggage compartment and stood on the sidewalk for a moment, just taking it all in. The noise, the crowds, the endless stream of cars. Everything was so different from the quiet town she'd left behind. Back home, everyone knew everyone. Here, she was just another face in the crowd. At least that's what she hoped. Growing up, Alina had always stood out. Not because she wanted to, but because of how she looked. Teachers would stop mid-sentence when she walked into class. Boys would elbow each other and whisper. Even the women at the grocery store would stare, sometimes with admiration, sometimes with something that felt like resentment. Her mother used to say it was a gift from God, but Alina often wondered if it was more of a test. In school, she'd worked twice as hard as everyone else just to be taken seriously. When she got good grades, people assumed she'd cheated or flirted with the teacher. When she won the debate competition, they said the judges were biased. It didn't matter what she accomplished. People always found a way to reduce it to her appearance. That's why she decided to move. In a big city, maybe things would be different. Maybe people would be more professional, more mature. Maybe she could finally be seen for her mind, her ideas, her work ethic. The apartment she'd rented was small but cozy. It was on the 4th floor of an old building with creaky stairs and thin walls. She could hear her neighbors arguing through the ceiling and smell someone cooking spices she couldn't identify. But it was hers. Her own space. Her fresh start. That first night she barely slept. Excitement and anxiety kept her tossing and turning. Tomorrow was her first day at the marketing firm. She'd applied to dozens of companies and almost given up hope when they called. The interview had been over video call, which probably helped. They'd focused on her portfolio, her ideas, her previous work. For once, she felt like she'd been hired for the right reasons. She laid out her outfit the night before. Professional but not too formal. She wanted to blend in, to be one of the team. No standing out. No special attention. Just good, honest work. The office was on the 15th floor of a glass building downtown. When Alina walked through the glass doors, the receptionist looked up and did a double take. Then she smiled, too wide, too friendly. "You must be Alina. Welcome, let me show you around." The office was open plan with rows of desks, meeting rooms with glass walls, and a break room that smelled like burnt coffee. People looked up as she walked past. Some smiled. Some stared. Some quickly looked away. Alina recognized that pattern. She'd seen it her whole life. Her desk was near the window, which was nice. Next to her sat a woman named Rita, who'd been with the company for 3 years. Rita was friendly enough, showing her how to log into the systems and where to find supplies. But even Rita kept glancing at her, like she was trying to figure something out. By lunchtime, Alina had met most of the team. There was Kevin from analytics always making jokes, Linda from accounts who barely looked at her, and then there was Vanessa, another account manager who would be working on similar projects. Vanessa shook her hand firmly, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "So you're the new hire everyone's been talking about," Vanessa said. "Impressive portfolio. Very impressive." The way she said it made Alina's stomach tighten. There was something in her tone, something sharp hidden beneath the pleasant words. The real test came in the afternoon when she sat in on her first team meeting. Her boss, Mr. Chen, was presenting a new campaign strategy. He was older, maybe in his 40s, with graying hair and an expensive watch. He seemed professional enough, explaining things clearly and asking for input from everyone. When it was Alina's turn to introduce herself and share her background, she felt everyone's eyes on her. She kept it brief, focusing on her experience and what she hoped to contribute. Mr. Chen listened, nodding along, but his gaze lingered a bit too long. Not in an obvious way, but Alina had learned to notice these things. It was a survival skill she'd developed over the years. After the meeting, Mr. Chen asked to speak with her privately. Her heart sank. Here we go, she thought. But he was professional mostly. He talked about expectations, goals for her first month, and resources available to help her succeed. Yet there was something in the way he leaned against his desk, the way he smiled when he said she'd be a great addition to the team. It wasn't anything she could point to specifically. Just a feeling. That evening, Alina video called her best friend back home. Maya had been her rock through everything, the one person who saw past the surface and loved her for who she really was. "How was it?" Maya asked, her face filling the screen. "I don't know yet," Alina admitted. "Everyone was nice, but they were staring," Maya finished for her. "Yeah. And there's this woman, Vanessa. I think she already doesn't like me," Maya sighed. "Give it time. Once they see how good you are at your job, things will settle down." "You're brilliant, Alina. They'll see that." Alina wanted to believe her. She really did. But experience had taught her that first impressions were hard to change. Once people put you in a box, they rarely let you out. The next few days followed a similar pattern. She'd work on campaigns, contribute ideas in meetings, and try to prove herself. Her work was solid. She knew it was. She'd spent years learning the craft, studying trends, understanding consumer psychology. But whenever she presented an idea, she could see the skepticism in people's eyes. Like they were waiting for her to fail, to prove that she was all surface and no substance. Vanessa was the worst. She'd question every suggestion Alina made, sometimes in front of the whole team. "Are you sure that's the right approach?" she'd ask, her voice dripping with false concern. "I mean, no offense, but do you really have experience with this kind of client?" Mr. Chen, on the other hand, was overly supportive. He'd praise her ideas, sometimes even when they weren't that great. He'd stop by her desk to chat, asking about her weekend plans or if she'd found good restaurants in the neighborhood. It was friendly, maybe too friendly, and he always seemed to find reasons to touch her shoulder or stand just a bit too close. Alina started staying late at the office, working when most people had gone home. It was easier that way, quieter, less complicated. She could focus on her work without feeling like she was being watched or judged. One evening, as she was packing up to leave, she heard voices from the break room. She recognized Vanessa's laugh, sharp and cutting. "I'm just saying we all know why she got hired," Vanessa was saying. "Did you see how Chen looks at her?" "It's obvious," another voice, Linda maybe, responded quietly. Alina couldn't hear what she said. "Oh, please," Vanessa continued. "Girls like that don't have to work as hard as the rest of us. They just smile and everything falls into their lap." Alina's hands clenched around her bag. She wanted to march in there and defend herself, to tell them about every late night she'd studied, every project she'd poured her heart into, every time she'd been overlooked despite being the most qualified person in the room. But she didn't. She'd learned that defending yourself often made things worse. Instead, she quietly walked to the elevator and pressed the button, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. As the elevator descended, Alina made herself a promise. She would work harder than anyone else. She'd be so good at her job that no one could question her value. She'd prove them all wrong, not with words but with results. She just hoped it would be enough. 2 months had passed since that night in the elevator. Alina had thrown herself into work with a determination that surprised even her. She was always the first one in the office and often the last to leave. Her desk was covered with campaign drafts, market research, and sticky notes with ideas scribbled at odd hours. It was paying off, or at least she thought it was. Her latest campaign for a local fitness brand had performed well in the initial testing phase. The client loved it. The numbers were good. She'd prepared a full presentation for the team meeting on Friday, complete with data analysis and future projections. Thursday night, she stayed until almost midnight putting the final touches on her slides. Everything had to be perfect. This was her chance to show everyone what she was really capable of. As she saved the file to the shared drive and shut down her computer, she felt a rare sense of confidence. Tomorrow would be her day. Friday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Alina got to the office early as usual. She ran through her presentation one more time, checking every slide, every statistic. At 10 o'clock, everyone gathered in the conference room. But something was wrong. Vanessa was standing at the front of the room, her laptop connected to the projector. Mr. Chen was smiling at her, that same warm smile he usually reserved for Alina. "Thanks everyone for coming," Vanessa began. "I'm excited to share this campaign strategy I've been working on." Alina's blood ran cold as Vanessa's first slide appeared on the screen. It was her presentation, her ideas, her research, even some of her exact wording. Vanessa had changed a few things here and there, enough to make it look different at first glance, but it was unmistakably Alina's work. She sat frozen in her chair as Vanessa went through the presentation, taking credit for everything. The clever tagline, the demographic targeting, the budget allocation, all of it, and everyone was nodding along, impressed. "Vanessa, this is excellent work," Mr. Chen said when she finished. "Really top-tier thinking. This is exactly the kind of initiative we need." Alina's hand was shaking as she raised it. "Actually, I need to say something." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to her. "That's my campaign," Alina said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been working on it for weeks. I saved it to the shared drive last night." Vanessa's expression didn't change. "I'm not sure what you mean. I've been developing this for the past month. Maybe we had similar ideas?" "No," Alina insisted, feeling heat rise to her face. "It's not similar. It's identical. You took my file." "That's a serious accusation," Mr. Chen said, his friendly tone disappearing. "Alina, do you have proof of this?" "The file timestamps. The drafts I've been sharing with Rita. She can confirm I've been working on this." Rita shifted uncomfortably in her seat but said nothing. "Look," Vanessa said calmly, "I understand you're upset. You're new here, you want to make your mark. But accusing colleagues of stealing your work isn't the way to build a career. Maybe you should think about why you're really making these claims." The implication hung in the air. Alina could see it in people's faces. They thought she was jealous that she couldn't handle Vanessa getting attention. "We can look into this," Mr. Chen said, but his tone suggested he'd already made up his mind. "But for now, let's move forward. Vanessa, excellent presentation. Alina, let's talk after the meeting." The rest of the meeting was a blur. Alina couldn't focus on anything being discussed. Her mind was racing, trying to figure out how this had happened, how Vanessa had been so bold. After everyone left, Mr. Chen called her into his office. He closed the door and gestured for her to sit. "Alina, I'm going to be honest with you. This doesn't look good, but it's my work. I can prove it. Even if that's true, the way you handled it was inappropriate. You embarrassed a senior colleague in front of the entire team. In this company, we handle conflicts privately, professionally. She stole my work. You don't know that. You said yourself it was on a shared drive. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe you both had similar ideas. These things happen." Alina couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So nothing's going to happen to her?" Mr. Chen leaned back in his chair. "Look, I know it's hard being new. You want to prove yourself. I get that. But you need to be careful. You're making waves, and not in a good way. Some people already think you're getting special treatment." "Special treatment? I work harder than anyone here. I know you do. I see you here late every night. But optics matter. You're a beautiful woman in a competitive industry. People are going to make assumptions. Fair or not, that's reality. You need to be above reproach." The words hit her like a slap. Beautiful woman. As if that was the problem. As if her appearance somehow justified what was happening. So what am I supposed to do? Just let her take credit for my work? I'm saying pick your battles. If you really want to succeed here, you need to learn how to play the game. Now I suggest you take the rest of the day off. Clear your head. Come back Monday ready to move forward. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a dismissal. Alina walked out of his office feeling numb. She grabbed her things and left without saying goodbye to anyone. Outside, the rain had started, matching her mood perfectly. She found herself walking aimlessly through the city streets, not caring that she was getting soaked. Everything she'd worked for felt like it was slipping through her fingers. And the worst part was she'd seen this coming. Some part of her had known that no matter how hard she worked, it would never be enough. Her phone buzzed. It was Maya. "Hey, I can't talk right now," Alina said, her voice breaking. "What happened?" And it all came pouring out. The stolen presentation, the meeting, Mr. Chen's office, everything. "You need to go to HR," Maya said immediately. "Document everything. This is textbook workplace misconduct. They won't believe me. You should have seen how everyone looked at me, like I was just some jealous girl making trouble. Then make them believe you. You have evidence. Use it." But Alina wasn't sure anymore. Maybe Mr. Chen was right. Maybe she needed to learn to play the game. Or maybe she needed to find a different game altogether. That evening, she sat in her small apartment staring at her laptop. She opened her portfolio, looking at all the work she'd done over the years. It was good work. She knew it was. But what good was talent if no one would give you a fair chance? Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from an unknown number. "Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a photographer friend of Maya's. She thought we should connect. I'm working on a project about authentic stories from real people. Would you be interested in meeting for coffee? Alina stared at the message. Under normal circumstances, she'd be suspicious. Random messages from men usually led nowhere good. But Maya must have given him her number, and Maya wouldn't do that unless she trusted him. Sure, she typed back. When? Maybe she thought it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to stop trying to prove herself to people who would never see her value. Maybe it was time to find people who would. But as she looked out at the rain-soaked city, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at a crossroads, and whichever path she chose next would change everything. The coffee shop was small and tucked away on a quiet street. Alina arrived exactly on time, scanning the room for someone who might be Daniel. A man in his early 30s waved from a corner table. He had messy hair, wore a vintage band t-shirt, and had 3 cameras scattered around his chair. Alina, thanks for coming, he said, standing up. His handshake was firm but not aggressive. His smile seemed genuine. Maya told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope, Alina said, settling into her chair. She said you're going through a rough time at work, and that you're one of the most talented people she knows, even though you don't always see it yourself. Alina felt her eyes prickle with tears. Trust Maya to see right through her. Daniel explained his project. He wanted to photograph ordinary people and tell their real stories. Not the polished versions people put on social media, but the messy, complicated truth. He'd already interviewed a firefighter who struggled with anxiety, a teacher who'd overcome addiction, and a delivery driver who wrote poetry. I'm interested in the gap between how people see us and who we actually are, he said. Maya mentioned you might understand that better than most. Over the next hour, Alina found herself opening up in a way she rarely did. She told him about growing up feeling like an object instead of a person, about working twice as hard for half the recognition, about the presentation that got stolen and how helpless she'd felt. Daniel listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. His attention felt different somehow, not like he was studying her appearance but actually hearing her words. I'd love to photograph you for this project, he said finally, but only if you're comfortable, and you'd have full control over what gets used and how. Something about his energy felt safe. Okay, Alina heard herself say. Let's do it. They scheduled their first session for the following weekend. In the meantime, Alina went back to work, trying to act normal even though everything felt broken. She kept her head down, focused on new projects, and avoided Vanessa as much as possible. Mr. Chen started paying more attention to her. He'd stop by her desk multiple times a day, asking how she was doing. He invited her to lunch, which she politely declined. Then he invited her to a client dinner, which she couldn't really refuse without looking unprofessional. The dinner was at an expensive restaurant downtown. The clients were friendly enough, a married couple who owned a chain of boutique hotels. But throughout the meal, Alina felt Mr. Chen's presence like a weight. He sat next to her, his leg occasionally brushing against hers under the table. He'd touch her back when making introductions. Nothing she could call out without seeming paranoid, but enough to make her uncomfortable. On the drive back, he offered to drop her home. She said she'd take the bus, but he insisted. I wanted to talk to you anyway, he said as they drove through the city streets, about what happened with Vanessa. I looked into it. You were right. The file timestamps prove it was your work originally. Alina's heart jumped. So what happens now? I spoke to her privately. She admitted to using your ideas, but claimed she thought they were free to use since they were on the shared drive. It's a gray area, technically. It's not gray. She stole my work and presented it as her own. I know, and I told her it was inappropriate. But between you and me, making a big deal out of this won't help your career. It'll just make you look difficult. So she faces no consequences. She got a verbal warning. Look, I'm on your side here. I believe you. But you need to understand how things work. Vanessa has been here for 5 years. She has relationships, allies. You're new. If this becomes a war, you'll lose. They'd reached her building. Helena grabbed her bag, eager to escape. Wait, Mr. Chen said, putting his hand on her arm. I want to help you. I see your potential. You're talented, ambitious. With the right guidance, you could go far in this company. Maybe we could have dinner sometime, just the two of us. Talk about your career path. The way he said it made everything clear. This wasn't about mentorship. This was about something else entirely. I'll think about it, Alina said, pulling her arm away. Thanks for the ride. She practically ran into her building, her heart pounding. Once inside her apartment, she locked the door and leaned against it, trying to calm down. The photography sessions with Daniel became her escape. Every weekend, they'd meet at different locations around the city. He'd ask her questions while he photographed, making her think about things she usually tried to ignore. When did you first realize people treated you differently? He asked during their third session. Alina thought back. I was maybe 12. I was in the school library, and the librarian accused me of trying to distract the boys. I was just reading. But she said I was dressed inappropriately, even though I was wearing the same uniform as everyone else. That's when I understood. My body wasn't really mine. It was something other people had opinions about. Daniel's camera clicked. That must have been confusing. It was. Because part of me liked the attention, you know? I'm not going to lie and say I didn't. But I hated that it was the only thing people saw. Like I was a painting in a museum instead of a person. The project was supposed to take a month, but it stretched into 2, then 3. Alina and Daniel became friends. Real friends. He told her about his own struggles, his failed relationships, his complicated family. She felt seen in a way she never had before. At work, things got worse. Mr. Chen's invitations became more persistent. When she kept declining, he started giving her less interesting projects. Her good ideas were suddenly not quite right. Her reports needed more revisions. Meanwhile, Vanessa was thriving. She got promoted to senior account manager. At the announcement meeting, she thanked Mr. Chen for his mentorship and support. He beamed at her like a proud father. Alina felt herself shrinking. The confident woman who'd arrived in the city was disappearing, replaced by someone anxious and uncertain. One evening, Maya called her. You don't sound like yourself. What's going on? Alina broke down. She told her everything. The stolen work that went unpunished, Mr. Chen's uncomfortable attention, the way she felt like she was losing herself piece by piece. You need to get out of there, Maya said. That's a dangerous environment. I can't just quit. I need this job. I have rent, bills. Then at least start looking for other options. Update your resume. Reach out to recruiters. Don't wait until it gets worse. But Alina didn't have the energy to start a job search. It felt like admitting defeat. The turning point came during one of her photo sessions with Daniel. They were in his studio, and he was showing her the images he'd compiled for the project. I want to call it Beyond the Surface, he said. What do you think? Alina looked at the photos. They were beautiful, artistic. But something felt off. In every image, the focus was still on physical appearance. The lighting, the angles, the composition, it was all about how she looked. I thought this project was about who people really are, she said slowly. It is. These photos capture your strength, your vulnerability. No, they capture what I look like when I'm talking about those things. That's different, Daniel frowned. I don't understand. Of course you don't, Alina said, something clicking into place. You see me the same way everyone else does. You just dress it up as art. That's not fair. I've spent months listening to your story, while pointing a camera at me the entire time. They argued back and forth until Alina finally left, angry and hurt. But the next day she realized something important. Even Daniel, who seemed so different, had ultimately reduced her to an image. The project was about him and his art, not about her truth. She was done letting other people define her story. The fight with Daniel was the wake-up call Alina needed. She'd spent so long trying to prove herself to people who would never truly see her, that she'd forgotten the most important person she needed to prove anything to was herself. That night, she opened her laptop and started making lists. All the time she'd been undermined at work. All the inappropriate comments from Mr. Chen, the timestamps on her stolen presentation, the names of witnesses who'd been present for various incidents. She documented everything methodically, creating a file that told a clear story of what had been happening. Then she started researching. She looked up the company's policies on workplace conduct. She read articles about how to report professional misconduct. She even found a forum where people shared their experiences dealing with similar situations. She wasn't the first person this had happened to, and she wouldn't be the last. But maybe her documentation could help. The next morning, she arrived at work with a new sense of purpose. She requested a meeting with HR, citing concerns about workplace environment. The HR representative, a woman named Helen, seemed friendly but cautious. "Before we begin, I want you to know this conversation is confidential," Helen said. "You can speak freely." Alina took a deep breath and started talking. She explained the stolen presentation, complete with file timestamps. She described Mr. Chen's increasingly inappropriate behavior. The touching, the invitations, the way her assignments changed after she declined his advances. She mentioned how Vanessa had faced no consequences despite clear evidence of misconduct. Helen took notes, her expression neutral. "These are serious allegations. Do you have any documentation?" Alina pulled out her laptop and showed her everything. Emails with suspicious timing, screenshots of file histories, even calendar invites to dinners that seemed more personal than professional. "I'll need to investigate this thoroughly," Helen said. "In the meantime, try to maintain a professional environment. Don't discuss this with your colleagues. I'll be in touch within a week." That week was torture. Alina couldn't focus on work. Every time Mr. Chen walked by her desk, her stomach churned. Vanessa seemed to sense something was happening and kept giving her strange looks. On Thursday, Helen called her back to HR, but this time Mr. Chen was there too, along with another executive Alina had never met. "We've completed our preliminary investigation," Helen said. "While we appreciate you bringing these concerns forward, we haven't found evidence of misconduct that rises to the level of policy violation." Alina felt like the floor had dropped out beneath her. "What about the presentation?" "The timestamps prove Vanessa took my work. We spoke with Vanessa. She maintains that you both had access to shared resources and that great minds sometimes think alike. Without proof of intentional theft, it's a matter of interpretation." "And Mr. Chen's behavior?" The other executive, Mr. Reynolds, spoke up. "Mr. Chen has been a valued member of this organization for 15 years. He's mentored dozens of employees. His attention to your career development is consistent with how he treats all promising new hires. He invited me to private dinners. He touches me inappropriately. He invited you to one client dinner, which is standard practice. As for physical contact, we have no other complaints about his behavior in 15 years. Perhaps you're misinterpreting friendly professionalism." Alina couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So nothing is going to happen?" Helen's expression softened slightly. "We take all concerns seriously. We've spoken with everyone involved and reminded them of our professional conduct policies, but we also want to caution you about making accusations you can't substantiate. It can be damaging to your career and to others' reputations." It was a warning. They were telling her to drop it or face consequences. "I see," Alina said quietly. "Is that all?" After the meeting, she went straight to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. But more than anything, she wanted to fight back. That evening, she called Maya. "They're protecting him," Alina said, her voice shaking. "They don't care what he did. He's too valuable to them." "Then you need to get out. Start applying to other jobs tonight. It's not that simple. If I leave now, I have nothing. No reference, no explanation for why I'm leaving after just a few months. I'll look flaky. You'll look alive. That's worth more than a reference." Maya was right, but Alina couldn't let it go. She started digging deeper, looking for information about Mr. Chen's history at the company. She reached out to former employees through professional networking sites, carefully crafting messages that didn't reveal too much. What she found shocked her. 3 other women had left the company under similar circumstances. All had worked directly with Mr. Chen. All had left within their first year. When Alina reached out to them privately, their stories were eerily similar to hers. The special attention that turned controlling. The inappropriate advances disguised as mentorship. The retaliation when they refused. "Why didn't you report him?" Alina asked one of them during a phone call. "I did. They buried it. He's too important to the company. He brings in major clients. The executives would rather lose a junior employee than risk damaging their relationship with him. So he just gets away with it? He has for years. I'm sorry you're going through this. My advice? Document everything, get out as soon as you can, and don't expect justice. The system isn't built for us." But Alina wasn't ready to give up. If the company wouldn't listen, maybe there were other ways to hold him accountable. She started compiling everything into a comprehensive document. Her story, the other women's stories, the pattern of behavior, the company's failure to act. It was 20 pages of detailed evidence. Then she did something risky. She sent it anonymously to every executive in the company, including the board of directors. She used a temporary email account and sent it late at night when she couldn't be traced. The next morning, the office was buzzing with tension. People whispered in corners. Executives held closed-door meetings. Mr. Chen arrived late and went straight into his office, slamming the door. By lunchtime, everyone had been called to an emergency all-hands meeting. The CEO stood at the front of the room looking uncomfortable. We've received some concerning information that requires our immediate attention. While we investigate these matters, Mr. Chen will be taking a leave of absence. We want to remind everyone that this company has zero tolerance for inappropriate workplace behavior. Alina kept her face neutral, but her heart was racing. She'd done it. She'd made them listen. After the meeting, Helen approached her. I know it was you. Alina didn't confirm or deny it. I don't know what you mean. You went around official channels. That could have serious consequences for your position here. So could ignoring multiple reports of misconduct. But here we are. The investigation took 2 weeks. During that time, more women came forward. It turned out Alina's document had given others the courage to speak up. The weight of all their stories together was impossible to ignore. Mr. Chen was eventually asked to resign. Vanessa, who'd apparently been involved in helping him cover up previous complaints, was also let go. The company issued a statement about strengthening their workplace policies and hired an external firm to review their procedures. It felt like a victory, but it was a hollow one. Alina knew she couldn't stay at the company. Too many bridges had been burned. Too many people resented her for causing trouble. She handed in her resignation on a Friday afternoon. She had enough savings to last a few months while she figured out her next move. As she packed up her desk, Rita approached her. I'm sorry I didn't speak up earlier. About the presentation. I knew it was yours. Why didn't you say something? I was scared. I have kids, a mortgage. I couldn't afford to lose my job. Rita paused. But what you did was brave. Thank you. It was a small consolation, but it meant something. 6 months after leaving the company, Alina sat in a small office space she shared with 3 other freelancers. The walls were painted bright yellow and plants grew on every available surface. It was nothing like the sterile corporate environment she'd left behind, and she loved it. Starting her own marketing consultancy had been terrifying. She'd spent the first month convinced she'd made a huge mistake. Who would hire her? She was young, relatively inexperienced, and had no corporate backing. But slowly, through word of mouth and some networking, clients started coming. Small businesses mostly. People who valued authenticity and wanted someone who actually cared about their success. Maya had been her first investor, insisting on putting money into the business, even though Alina had protested. You helped me believe in myself when I wanted to go back to school, Maya had said. Now let me help you. The business wasn't making her rich, but it was growing steadily. More importantly, Alina felt like herself again. She could work with people who respected her. She could turn down clients who made her uncomfortable. She could build something on her own terms. One quiet afternoon, she got an unexpected message. It was from Daniel. I know I don't deserve a response, but I wanted to apologize. You were right about everything. I was using your story for my art without really considering what that meant for you. I've been thinking about it a lot. If you're willing, I'd like to meet and properly say sorry. Alina stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to ignore it. But another part remembered that Daniel had been one of the few people who'd tried to understand her, even if he'd gotten it wrong. They met at the same coffee shop where they'd first talked. Daniel looked different, less confident somehow. Thank you for coming, he said. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. I've been doing a lot of thinking since our fight. I went back and looked at the project and I saw what you meant. It was still all about the surface. I was so focused on creating something beautiful that I forgot the whole point was to go deeper. I'm sorry. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that you changed how I see things. I scrapped the project. I'm starting something new, and this time I'm letting people tell their own stories in their own words. I'm just facilitating, not framing. That's good, Alina said. I'm glad. They talked for a while, carefully rebuilding a friendship that had been damaged but maybe not destroyed. It wasn't the same as before, but it was honest, and that mattered. Around the same time, Alina started getting messages from other women who'd read about what happened at her old company. The story had made it to some business publications, though Alina had managed to stay mostly anonymous. These women shared their own experiences of workplace misconduct, of not being believed, of fighting systems that weren't designed to protect them. One message stood out. It was from a college student named Priya, who was about to start her first corporate job. "I'm terrified," Priya wrote. "I've already experienced professors treating me like I'm not smart because of how I look. I don't know how to handle it in the professional world. Do you have any advice?" Alina spent an hour crafting her response. She told Priya about documentation, about trusting her instincts, about finding allies. But she also told her something she wished someone had told her earlier. Your appearance isn't something you need to apologize for or work around. The problem isn't you. It's a system that reduces people to their surfaces. Don't let anyone make you feel like you need to dim your light to be taken seriously. Shine bright and demand respect. The right people will give it to you. That conversation sparked an idea. Alina started a blog where she shared her experiences and advice for young professionals, especially women dealing with workplace challenges. She wrote about everything from navigating office politics to recognizing red flags in company culture, to advocating for yourself when things go wrong. The blog grew faster than she expected. Within 3 months, she had thousands of regular readers. People shared her posts, thanked her for putting words to their experiences, and asked for advice on their own situations. A publisher reached out, interested in turning the blog into a book. A university invited her to speak at a career development workshop. Slowly, Alina was building something that mattered, something that could actually help people. Maya came to visit one weekend, bringing takeout and wine. They sat on Alina's small balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "I'm proud of you," Maya said. "Look at everything you've built. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. You just needed to believe in yourself." Alina smiled. "Do you remember when I first moved here? I thought if I just worked hard enough, proved myself enough, people would see my value. I was so naive. You weren't naive. You were hopeful. There's a difference. Maybe. But I've learned that some people will never see past the surface no matter what you do. And that's okay. They're not my people. So who are your people? The ones who lead with curiosity instead of assumptions. The ones who value substance over image. The ones who understand that everyone has depth if you bother to look for it." A few weeks later, Alina was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference. Standing backstage, waiting for her name to be called, she felt nervous but ready. This was different from presenting in corporate meetings. This was her story, her truth, shared on her terms. The moderator introduced her and Alina walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, and she could barely see the audience, but she could feel their presence. Hundreds of women, all with their own stories, their own struggles. She started by sharing her journey. The small-town girl who moved to the big city with dreams of being taken seriously. The workplace battles. The moment she realized the system wasn't broken, it was built this way. And finally, the decision to build something new instead of trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. "For years, I tried to change how people saw me," she said. "I dressed differently. I spoke differently. I worked harder than everyone around me. And none of it mattered because the problem wasn't me. The problem was a world that taught people to judge books by their covers and then blame the books for having nice covers. People laughed at that, a knowing laugh that said they understood. But here's what I learned. You can't control how people see you. You can only control how you see yourself. And once you truly value yourself, once you understand your own worth, it becomes easier to walk away from people and places that don't recognize it." She talked about building her business, about the blog, about the community of women supporting each other. She talked about the importance of documenting everything, of finding allies, of speaking up even when it's scary. Someone asked me recently if I regret how everything happened, if I wish I'd just kept my head down, played the game, stayed at that company. And honestly, no. Because that experience taught me who I am. It taught me that I'm stronger than I thought, that my voice matters, that standing up for myself isn't selfish or difficult, it's necessary. As she spoke, she noticed movement in the audience. A woman in the third row was crying. Another was nodding vigorously. Others were taking notes. These weren't just people listening to a speech. They were people seeing themselves in her story. The title of my story was chosen to represent how society sees women like me. Velvet skin, dangerous lips, a body that demands attention. But here's what I want you to understand. My skin is just skin. My lips are dangerous only when they speak truth, and my body doesn't demand anything. I do. I demand respect. I demand fairness. I demand to be seen as a whole person, not just a surface to project onto. The applause started before she even finished, building into a standing ovation. Alina felt tears in her eyes, but they were good tears, healing tears. After the speech, dozens of women approached her. They shared their stories, asked for advice, thanked her for speaking up. One older woman grabbed her hand and said, "I spent 40 years trying to be invisible so people would take me seriously. I wish I'd heard your message decades ago." That night, back in her apartment, Alina reflected on everything that had happened. The journey from that hopeful girl on the bus to the woman she was now. She'd lost things along the way. Her naivety, her trust in certain systems, her belief that hard work alone was enough. But she'd gained so much more. Self-knowledge, real friendships, a purpose that went beyond her own success. She opened her laptop and started writing a new blog post. Today I spoke to a room full of women about owning your story, about refusing to let other people's perceptions define your reality. And I realized something. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm grateful. Because every challenge, every person who underestimated me, every obstacle I faced, they all led me here, to this moment, to this life I've built, to this person I've become, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. She hit publish and closed her laptop. Tomorrow she had a meeting with a potential client, a women's shelter that needed help with their fundraising campaign. It wasn't glamorous work and it didn't pay much, but it mattered. And that was enough. Alina walked to her window and looked out at the city that had tested her, broken her, and ultimately helped her find herself. She was still that small-town girl with big dreams. But now she knew that the biggest dream wasn't about being seen by others. It was about